Excellent. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I am in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. Our panelists aren't all with me. They're in various places in the country, as you probably are too. This is the RISmedia's Fundamentals of Success webinar. We're going to be looking forward into 2024. Have a little technical problem there. Oops, there we go. I'm Kara Nichols. I'm your presenter today, your moderator today. I am one of the education managers, regional education manager for Calibri Real Estate. That's just enough about me. Let's talk about Rick, our sponsor with United Realty. Welcome, Rick. How's it going today?
Going great. Thank you, Kara.
No problem. Rick Haas with United Real Estate. They have a revolutionary business model, launched them into the 10 largest brokerages in America. Rick has done that for United Real Estate. He has been in brokerage strategy and operations for over 30 years, operated traditional and transaction fee-based models for residential and commercial brokerages, but also mortgage, insurance, title, and settlement services. That's an amazing resume, Rick. He's held senior leadership positions with market share leading companies in multiple states, and he has been involved and accomplished dozens of real estate and related service mergers and acquisitions. Not only the 10th largest, but from 139th in the country to 7th largest independent real estate brokerage nationwide. He's also a frequent lecturer and consultant throughout the industry. Rick, do you have anything that you'd like to share with our audience?
Oh, hey, yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation to host or sponsor RISMedia. You know, you guys do such a great job. I'm glad to be here. Regarding our company, I think that's enough. I mean, I guess because of that introduction, I'll say that we really pay very little attention to national rankings. What we pay more attention to is how are we serving our clients, how are we serving our internal customers called agents and brokerages, and we want to make sure that they have a great experience engaged with our company, and we're providing all the right tools and services. We just crossed over 22,000 agents in 46 states. So I think our diligence and you know, our core mission is to improve the financial trajectory of our agents and brokers' careers and lives. And I think we're being rewarded by that over the last 4 or 5 years, especially with the kind of growth we've had.
Sounds like you're a busy, very busy man, Rick. Thanks for joining.
We are all busy. Kara, that's one of the hardest parts about introductions is if you're the face in the moment, you kind of get to take the bows, but we have an incredible team, and Dan Duffy, our CEO, Dave Dickey, our CTO, Scott Johnson, our CFO, and then a host of people at home office who are running day to day, making sure that we deliver for the people we serve. But it's really a team effort.
Excellent. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about being successful in 2024. We have Scott McDonald is up next. Welcome, Scott. Scott has 30 years of experience as a real estate investor, broker, and owner. He is currently the president of RE/MAX Gateway, Virginia. He has built his brokerages by providing excellent customer service, training, and development for his agents. I can't wait to hear more about that today. He has been nominated for Realtor of the Year. He is in the RE/MAX Hall of Fame. He's a RE/MAX International Convention speaker and a panelist for the NAR's REPAC group. He serves on the Northern Virginia Association of the Realtors Board of Directors, and he's the board of directors of MLS for Bright. And I think that's the largest MLS, isn't it, Bright MLS?
Second, I believe CRMLS is #1, I believe, out in California.
He's been recognized as one of the top real estate newsmakers and has an outstanding leadership award from Nova Real Estate Producers magazine. Welcome, Scott. Is there something that you'd like to say as we start?
No, just again, like Rick said, thank you for allowing me to be part of this panel. Look forward to sharing some ideas, and hopefully it'll benefit the people that are listening today.
Can't wait to hear from you. That brings us to our third panelist. We have James Dwiggins. He is with Next Home. Next Home supports agents in branding, technology, and tools so the agents can spend more time building their relationships and taking the advice of our other panelists. James is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder. He is a third generation in real estate, so his grandparents and his parents were both in real estate. He's been in the franchise business since 2006. He founded or co-founded VREO, pioneering biometric signature software for paperless transactions. Thank you very much for that, James. That's amazing. He's won the Innovator Award for Breakthrough Technologies, co-founded USA Virtual Tours. He also speaks regularly and is a frequent media expert on real estate and other industry, franchise, and technology developments. He's won the Futurist and Trailblazer Awards and the Swimming Pool Power 200 lists #1 franchising for owner satisfaction. So that's quite a good accolade there. #1 in owner satisfaction for franchises. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about being successful in 2024. Is there anything you'd like to share with us before we get started with our panel?
Other than that long bio, I'm 6'7". I'm a Cancer, and I like long watches on the beach. So we'll add to the long bio. No, I'm good. Thank you. As my colleagues have stated, we're excited to talk about how we can help everybody in 2024. So.
Well, yeah, I think they left your height off of the bio.
I'll make sure it's added next time.
Okay. So with 2023 ending, perfect time for us to start thinking about 2024, how to grow our businesses in the new year. Great to have some industry experts here for some advice. We're going to talk about best practices for listing presentations, elements of a successful buyer presentation, and just understanding the fundamentals of success in the ever-changing real estate world. I don't think any year is ever the same as the previous year. So we always have to shift and move, see what's going on in the market, make some changes, maybe be ahead of the curve. Now, one of my mentor brokers, as I was, what I say, growing up in the real estate industry, he had a saying. He was known for his sayings. And one of them was 5 to survive or list to live, right? His strategy was to have listings as the business strategy for real estate success. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is what are the best practices that agents can use, put into play in 2024 to show their value over their competitors in the listing presentation. Rick, would you like to share what you feel are best practices when it comes to listing presentations?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Kara, the name of this is Fundamental for Success in 2024. And I think, there's a lot of tactics or tactical changes that people can make in how they present and how they discuss value. But I think because of the name of this program, Fundamentals, I think I just have to say that making a listing presentation is about building trust, building as foundational to actually what you're going to tell the client or the would-be client. But you have to build trust. And the first thing that happens is people do business with people they trust, people they like, of course, people they know, if those two other components are there. So with regard to making a listing presentation, I would say build the foundation. And then, back in I would say old days, there was this model of selling called prospect, qualify your prospect, make a presentation, overcome any objections, and close. That 5-step process is so tiresome when someone's actually trying to walk you through that I think to adapt today and for a long time now, if you're not adapting to the market and adopting a advisory capacity, consultative approach to helping people make good decisions, you're really just selling at them. So from a listing presentation perspective, I think you have to make sure that, that fundamental concept, you should be asking more questions than making more statements. First, find out what the patient needs. And then second, and only after you find out their needs, make sure, again, fundamental, make sure that you diagnose and then prescribe, not prescribe and hope it fits whatever the sellers need.
We need to listen to the sellers and provide an advisory capacity. Scott, in all of your training, how do you train your agents to become great advisors?
Well, what we do is we encourage them to get a pre-listing package together that talks about them and their experience and what they do and how they're going to market the property and so forth, so that when they go to the house, they do exactly what Rick says. You go in and you ask questions. The whole presentation is about them. What do you know about the market today? Why are you moving? Where are you moving to? When do you need to be there? So that you can help craft the presentation around their needs. And you don't want to go in because telling isn't selling. You want to be consultative, ask the right questions, and then you can guide them through the process based upon the answers they give you to the questions that you ask. So that, I think, is the most important thing. And then I think also you need to know the numbers. What are inventory levels? Are they up? Are they down? Why are they down if they're down? Today, we know why interest rates are down. People are locked into their mortgages and because of interest rates. So explaining that to people and where inventory levels are driving demand. So know what demand levels are. And you learn that by talking to other agents that have listings or have recently sold listings. How many offers did you have? How many showings did you have? How many people are coming to open houses? So that you can then correlate that to your buyer. What are the average and median sales prices in the neighborhood, the zip code, and in the city? What are absorption rates? What are the trends? Things along those lines. So if you can educate the client to help them make the right decisions when they do determine to put the house on the market. Again, explaining the process to them, timelines, things along those lines. This is how the process is going to work. This is who you're going to be communicating with. This is what my team looks like as far as a transaction coordinator, stager, photographer, contractors if needed, so forth. So you explain everything to them so that they know what to expect when they go into the transaction. Also, it's important to know if they've ever sold a house before and how that process went and what their thoughts are on the process today versus when they last sold their property. So again, a lot of questions and then directing them in the right direction when they're going to decide to list.
I agree with a lot of that, Scott, or I agree with all of it, Scott. And James, how can technology and marketing help us with our seller presentations? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did want to add one comment in addition to the comments my colleagues said, which were all fantastic. I think that one of the things agents need to do, which we teach in our organization, which is important for everyone to do, is do your reconnaissance. So before you go out on a listing presentation, spend some time actually going and looking what other properties are, how they're being marketed in that specific neighborhood. Are they using property flyers? Are they doing virtual tours? Are they doing single property websites? Are they doing Facebook ads? Like, do your reconnaissance to see essentially what your competition is, because I guarantee you that seller is also looked up the marketing of all these other properties. So you can't go into it with doing a presentation without knowing what your competition's doing in the space. You need to do it better than them. And the only way to do that is to get your butt in the car, go look at the signs, go look at everything that's going on, spend some time seeing how houses are being sold in that market, so that when you go in there, you're not only doing everything that the seller has already seen the competitors doing, you're doing it better than they are so that you win deals in this market. I cannot tell you how often I talk to agents where they have no idea what the competition did on the listing down the street or how it's being marketed. And I'm like, well, you're going in blind, because I guarantee you your seller did that research first. As far as technology, look, if you're handing out comps from the MLS in printouts, you're doing it wrong. If you're not using a presentation that's already has all that data, brought into it, whether it's through Touch CMA or Cloud CMA or Core Present or whatever your choice of software is, you need to rethink how that presentation looks. I'll go old school. I think you should still put your presentation in a book and bind it. The reason why I say you should print the thing out in addition to having a digital version is because it's something they hold on to. That seller is going to only retain 10% of what you tell them, and you need to have leave behind material that's physical. They can touch it, they can feel it. You can bring in what I call old school tactics into this sort of new school world. And it's about creating a differentiation, and standing out in front of your clients. But a CMA software is an absolute must. Know what your competition's doing. Make sure that the marketing and tech that you're presenting is on par with your competition or better, or you're going to lose the listing appointment. So
one thing I'd like to add to that too, James, and I 100% agree with you. You can't just look at listings online. You can't tell if there's cat smells, dog smells in the house. Also, people will stage their house just for pictures, and they won't make their bed, and they won't clean the dishes and things like that. And you don't know it unless you go out and actually physically see it. So that's a critical point that agents need to do, is don't rely just on the photos that they see. Go out and see 5 houses a day.
It's interesting that the deeper dive on the topic of, I see a lot of agents full of facts, like knowing the numbers about what's been happening in the community around the subject property. That's table stakes. Knowing the numbers are important, but what's more important is helping them make meaning out of those numbers. And to your point about, James, about old school, and when you're talking about leaving other materials behind, everyone has a slightly different learning style. We all know that confused buyers defer decisions, but clear buyers or sellers are clear on things, make decisions to move forward. And if you're expecting for them to decide to hire you to market their home and represent them, then you need to have a lot of clarity, no confusion. And one of the ways you take confusion out is let them hear the presentation, let them see it. Sometimes 2 or 3 reads through the material on leave behinds is what makes them understand it, helps them understand it. When you have consumers with different learning styles, you need to make sure, and you do have consumers with different learning styles, you need to make sure you give them every opportunity to get clarity out of the information that you're sharing.
Kara, one other comment I would do, just as another idea, since we're getting very, down to tactile, send a BombBomb video after the presentation, thanking them for letting you into their home, and then reiterate some of the things you talked about during the listing presentation, because again, they're going to retain 10% of what you tell them. So you could do a 5-minute BombBomb, just here are the key points I wanted you to remember, refer to the material, here's a link to the digital version of the CMA. It's all those little touch points that provide that extra value and that extra touch that help you stand out in front of another agent, because that's really the name of the game. It's showmanship to make sure that they understand your value. So
for the participants who don't know what BombBomb is, or a BombBomb-like program, could you give us a little bit of an explanation about that?
Yeah, I mean, BombBomb, it's BombBomb, I think .com or whatever, but it's just a video recording of you talking to, the camera about thanking them or whatever you're going to do, and it goes to them in the email. The trick with BombBomb is it looks like the video, a portion of the video is in the email message. So the open rates are very high because they see your photo and you're talking to them. They want to click it and then be able to watch the video. BombBomb will track whether they watched it, what length they stopped, how often they opened it up. So if you're not using BombBomb or a version of that, there are other companies out there that do similar things. You should be implementing that in your business today. It's about constantly reinforcing your expertise, and in finding any opportunity to do that, I think is huge. I know we'll probably get to this at some point, but just how do you create a continuing presence of yourself, doing videos, getting a YouTube channel to talk about the market or the area or the neighborhood, just ways that consumers can research you and learn about your knowledge base on their terms, as Rick was talking about. I think it's a really relevant comment. Everybody consumes information differently, but it's just all those little things add up. There's going to still be around 4 million houses that are sold next year. Depending upon interest rates and market and the Fed and all the other nonsense we listen to, there's going to be an average of around 4 million units. There's a lot of realtors. You're going to have to fight for those same deals. There are plenty of agents right now who have increased their business in 2023 because they're doing the things that other agents aren't willing to do. So, there's a lot of people with a license, a certain segment of them are the ones that do most of the business. They'll continue to do most of the business because they're doing the things that most other agents won't implement. It's not a complicated way to get in front of people. So
We will, in the third segment, we'll talk about some key things that people should be doing or agents should be doing in 2024. Thanks for touching on those amazing points. But I have a question for Scott and Rick is in the real estate brokerage world. What I heard is a kind of a theme here was you need to get out and go do the work. We need to go see the listings. We need to have the presentation. We need to know the numbers. So how do you find in a brokerage, what type of things can a broker do to help an agent understand the work that they need to do and give them the tools to do it?
Well, for us, what we do is we have training every week. We do every Monday, we have agent development training, and it's topical training. Right now, we're having agents work on their business because of the time of year. So they're going over their business plan. We're going over what their plans of action are going to be for each month next year, and then breaking that down into each week so that they have focus on what they're going to be doing going forward in the year. But in addition to that, we're doing a lot of role playing, different scenarios from both the buyer's perspective and a seller's perspective on the buyer presentations and listing presentations. We're having them update their buyer guides and their seller guides for the new year that we're coming into. Because again, as James just said, we're going to have about 4 million sales. So people are still buying and selling houses. So what are you going to do to get in front of people who are going to refer you to those people that are going to move? Job relocation, so you're going to be talking to human resources people. The unfortunate situation of people getting divorced, so you're talking to divorce attorneys. Are you going to be talking to probate attorneys, estate planners, things along those lines, because unfortunately people do die. Marriage counselors, there's a number of different people that you can go out and talk to. So we're educating our agents on that, and then we do market updates every Wednesday. We call it a real estate information exchange. We go over what's happening in our industry from a national perspective and what our clients could be hearing, but break it down to what's happening on our local level and how they can communicate to our clients, whether they're buyers or sellers, what's truly happening in our market versus what they're going to be seeing in the headlines or watching on the nightly news, or whatever the case might be. So it's a constant and continuous education process for our agents through our Monday trainings, our Wednesday real estate exchanges, and then just as James said, I do bombs every week to the agents, and we put them on our mastermind Facebook page. They're in my bomb account. If somebody says, hey, what's happening, I can boom, shoot them a quick email. So again, you have to over communicate today in today's market, because it is different from 2 years ago, right? It's different from 10 years ago. It's different from 30 years ago. So you have to be able to show your value to people by knowing what is happening in the market, especially on a local basis.
Yeah, I think that, I keep using this word, table stakes. When you're bringing, we've gone from 7 to 22,000 agents in a short period of time. A good many of those people are new, and a good many of those folks that are with our company are they join us experienced, but it's said that there's 2 times when training and education is necessary. One is when you're new to a job, and the other is when a job, because of external changes in the environment, becomes new to you again. And that's certainly what we've been through from March 20th, 2020 forward. There's always been historically, there's always change. There's always things that you need to be freshened up on. But when there's an accelerated rate of change, that's when a company needs to double down on their training, education, and development efforts. United at our company, we launched a learning management system that allows us to deploy training, education, and development programming across the country to various cohorts within our agent group, whether they're, to speak at a high level, new, experienced, top producing teams. All of those 4 are the basics, but there's so many more. There's unique and luxury homes, antique and vintage homes, condominium and alternative housing models that you need to train on, make sure people understand, and then to partner with people who can deliver things like, here's an example. I asked an agent, not in my company, but lives on my street. I said, we need We need to change the way we think about financing. The interest rates, although we know they're at a 35-year normative rate at 7 today, they still feel relatively high. But so how many of the agents who got into the business in the last 5 years truly understand adjustable rate mortgages? Not just the core function, but what are they indexed to? How often do they move? How many agents today understand buy down interest rates and what's the best cost-effective way to do that? And how to be encouraging sellers in certain circumstances to use buy down incentives for buyers to lessen their first, second, and third year interest rates. All those contemporaneous trainings are needed based on what's happening in the market today. So staying current and delivering the kind of training that Scott referenced, and honestly that most all good companies have an absolute commitment to making sure that training happens and education. And those aren't just 3 words. Training is teaching people how to do the technical aspects of the job. Education, teaching people why we do those. And then development is making sure you have systems to watch them improve their skills, improve their competencies over time. And that's part and parcel to our learning academy at United.
And before we move on to speaking about buyers, is there anything that you guys would like to finish up with on listing presentations and the best practices for those?
No, I'm good.
I won't add to that, Kara. I'll just add one comment because I think there isn't anything that United, RE/MAX, Next Home, or most other companies aren't similarly doing on the training side. I mean, there may be some one-offs here and there, but the concept's the same. I'll just add this. I think agents need to decide whether they want to be in the business or not, to be blunt. You know, like they have to choose in 2024, are you willing to do the work to be a realtor? Are you willing to take an hour every day and put it towards education? Are you going to show up to the company meeting, or are you going to choose to go do something else? Are you going to go to the webinar, or are you going to find a reason not to go to the webinar? The reality of this is there's too many realtors in the business, and a certain percentage of them are going to continue to do a majority of the business in the market because they make the choices to show up and do the hard work. Not ragging on anybody, I'm just being blunt. Like, if you have all the best training in the world at Scott's office, but you don't show up to it, you aren't going to succeed. Find another job. So the reality is, like, people need to choose that this is not a world where in 2021 you could have a real estate license and your neighbor would call you to buy a house. Those days are gone. They have to understand that there's hard work. You have to articulate value. You have to make the time. You have to be willing to have the phone hung up on you. You have to be willing to door knock. You have to have the ability to have the door slammed in your face. This isn't some like rosy industry. We have to choose if you want to be in this. Make the dedication to do it. Look at yourself and decide, can I do these things? Am I willing to cold call? Am I willing to do role playing with Scott in front of his office? Am I comfortable doing any of that stuff? And if you aren't, then candidly find an 8 to 5 somewhere else, because that's what this business is about and going to be about the next few years. It's going to be hard. It's going to be different. We've all on this panel been on this industry for a long time. We are in a very different world right now and going into 2024 and 2025 than I will have seen in my entire lifetime in residential real estate. And people are going to make a lot of money and do very well and service customers, but it's going to be a certain percentage that do, and a lot of people that won't be able to make that cut. I'm off my soapbox. So.
Well, James, that reminds me a little bit of a story I once heard about an agent named Hazel Oates. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the name Hazel Oates. Hazel Oates became licensed at about 65 years of age. She was the Rookie of the Year at one of the large national brokerages. And somebody wanted to interview her for a news piece. And she wasn't as verbose as maybe we're being. And she simply said, you got to get up and go to work. And they never published her interview, by the way, because it was really all she had to say. And she went on to become one of the top 3 agents, starting in her real estate career at the age of 65. So I think that's really good advice. And as we continue on this panel, we're going to fill in the details that Hazel didn't fill in on her interview. As we move to buyer presentations, I think there is maybe a concept or a reality that it's harder to sell our value to buyers. Sellers either need to sell or they want to sell to move on to another place, a change in their life. But sometimes buyers, and I think Rick may have said it, when you're confused, you don't make decisions. So as we work with buyers, I think it's a good question. Is it harder to sell our value to buyers? How do we sell our value to buyers? How do we make sure that our buyers are loyal to us just like we're loyal to them?
Who do you want to go first?
Who wants to go? Kara, I have to add something. In terms of the two different client bases, buyer side or seller side of the transaction, I think my first broker was he was one of the true masters, and he taught me that when you go sit in a seller's home and get them to list their property with you, you're selling the intangible set of services, which is you. Now, I understand that happens on both sides, but when you're selling a service, and one of the popular things for people to say today, and has been for a while, is the single biggest investment someone makes in their lifetime is purchasing the home. I get that, but one of the top 5 is just listing the house and paying the commissions that they pay. That's an expensive transaction. How many times does a consumer go out and buy something for 12, 15, 20,000 or more? That just selecting a company to market their home is an expensive transaction. So I guess I kind of disagree with the notion that one is harder than the other. They're just different sells. They're different things that need to be sold. As an agent many years ago, I'd sit in an open house. Someone would come in, and whether they liked, trusted, or whatever me, they bought the house. They didn't know me well enough to say I like them or I trust them. It happens fast, but they bought the house. That was a very tangible purchase for those buyers. When every single time I went into a home and said, you should entrust me with the marketing and sale of your house, that was an intangible sale. So I think they're very different things. But I was telling James the other day, my first broker was a man named James Maroka. Jim had a rule. I got licensed when I was 18, so he's had a rule. I listened to it. Didn't do no second guessing allowed, actually. But he made us, as new agents, have buyer consultation appointments prior to putting somebody in a car or meeting them in a house and showing them the property. We had to explain up front, these are all the things I do for you. We actually helped them go through some of their finances. What's a comfortable level of payment? We did something called qualifying the buyer, so we could make sure we understood, are they VA qualified, FHA qualified? Do they need a buy down? Do they have the ability to purchase the homes that we're looking at? Today, I think we're all too quick to bypass that buyer presentation. And there's easily 150, depending on how you define them. There's more steps or touch points that a real estate agent who's providing professional services provides to a buyer. But how often does that buyer ever really see those things? And I think, again, the title of this is Fundamentals. I was very fortunate to have Jim Maroka teach me about, at an early age, how to prove my value to a buyer prior to engaging in the showing of homes. And that could take time. Sometimes they're 2, 3, 6 months in the process. They stuck with us because we took the time to do that. And frankly, I'm glad he made us do it.
As far as real estate agent success go, Rick, when you were speaking, I was thinking about my first broker, and one of the things that he taught me, I would be honest, I hid some of the things from him that I did, because in the end, he said, not all business is good business. And having that buyer consultation is really important, because just putting somebody in your car, maybe you're not a good fit. Maybe they're not really a qualified buyer. So not only having that buyer consultation,
And, you know, if you talk about all the disloyalty, I totally don't agree with that. I think there's tremendous loyalty once someone really understands the value proposition that you're bringing to the discussion and bringing to the relationship with a buyer. I think part of the easy to change from one agent to the other issue is the fact that they don't establish all of the value that they're bringing to begin with. Sure, why wouldn't they move if all you did is, you know, answer a question or two about a house or show me one property?
That's an excellent point, Rick. Very, very well said. How about you, Scott? How do you find working with buyers, and what are the elements to a successful buyer presentation?
Yep. So again, it's what Rick says. If somebody calls and has to see the house right then, and they won't take the time to meet with you, they're not going to be the type of client in all likelihood that you want to have. If someone's not willing to invest 45 minutes to an hour and a half to sit down and learn the process, learn how you work, you're not going to probably want to work with that person at the end of the day. So having a buyer consultation, buyer interview, job interview, whatever you want to call it, you know, I'm going to decide if you're the right client for me and if I'm the right agent for you. And the only way we can figure this out is if we have time together, either in my office, at a Starbucks, Panera, someplace like that. And again, it's 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how many questions you have, right? But it's important to know when you have this buyer interview, what is their knowledge of the market? What are they hearing? You know, are they thinking that interest rates are still 3%? Or are they thinking interest rates are 8%? You know, and how does that matter to them, and why should that matter to them? If they're at 7.5, you might want to look at a buy down kind of thing. So knowing where the market is, and what their thoughts on the market are, if they think it's a buyer's market or seller's market, or if they're going to have an easy time or not. So again, you can direct them to help them make the right decisions. But, you know, again, knowing what they want, what's their current living situation? Are they in a lease and they have to be out in 30 days? Do they have another house to sell? I mean, there's a lot of different variables that you need to know so that you can help give them the right advice. So if they're in a lease, what kind of lease is it? How long is that lease? You know, have they bought a house before? What was that process like? What did they learn? What would they do differently today than they did back then? You know, things along those lines. So again, it starts just like the listing presentation, asking a lot of questions up front to see what they need, see what they want, and see if you can help them make the right decisions when deciding on a property location, style of house, size of house, you know, schools, whatever the case might be that they need or that they want to be in. Are they relocating from out of the area? You know, there's a bunch of different things that you can't give the right advice if you don't know the answers to these questions. So that's what sets a successful a successful interview from an unsuccessful interview. Also, the one thing that we're able to sell is the relationships that we have with other agents. So if we are in a multiple contract situation, chances are I know that agent because of my involvement in the association, in the MLS, in running my company, out looking at houses on a regular basis, going to broker opens, going to open houses, things along those lines. I can build relationships with agents where somebody else might not have that relationship. I've done a transaction with that agent before. So that also, I think, adds value when I go on a buyer presentation to help somebody out that in all likelihood, if there's 4 contracts on it, I know how to communicate to that agent so that they get the house that they want, and let them know the average number of contracts I write is just over 1. You're going to be able to get, in all likelihood, your first choice, not your 50th choice or not your 30th choice, because of the strong relationship I have with not only the other agent, but with my mortgage company, my title company, my home inspector, and so forth. So being able to sell the relationships I have with those people also helps get our contracts through more quickly. So, selling the time savings for them, listening to their answers, and helping direct them in the right way to go when they're looking to buy their house.
One of the things that I took away from what Rick had to say, and I'm going to rephrase it in my interpretation, is that houses sell themselves to buyers, and we sell ourselves to the people that we work for and represent. And since we are in such a go world, and we're really never disconnected, right? Most of us always have our phones on us or a tablet on us. And sometimes we do find that those potential clients don't want to have the buyer consultation. They don't want to take the 45 minutes. They're in a hurry. They just want to see the house. How is it that we can stay connected to them, James? How is it that we can keep in front of them and make sure that they know us and that they are going to agree to that buyer consultation, that time is worth it for them?
Well, we have to be visible, first of all. I mean, I was having this on my podcast recently. I had a really, really interesting guest. I forget the term he used, but he was talking about how when you're posting content online with videos, there was a specific psychological term for it, that people establish a relationship with you that you've never met. That they follow you, they read, they listen to what you're saying, they're watching you talk about subject, content matter. They feel like they know you, and when they actually meet you in person, it's like they're talking to you like you've been best friends, and you're like, who the hell is this person? I've never met them before. So my comment with that is, what we have to be doing more. And when we think about content, I asked them, well, how do agents come up with content to constantly share online? It's like, take every question they ask you and go make a damn video out of it. It's really that simple. Like, it's not actually that complicated. It's go do a TikTok video for 30 seconds. Had a buyer ask me this question today, gave him this response, thought it was relevant. Just start creating that content to create those relationships. And what happens is they end up building trust in you. They've been seeing you, following you. When you talk with them and you ask them to do something, you're already the authority expert. They're wanting to hear from you. They're wanting to do a buyer consult. They're wanting to have somebody guide them through this process. So I personally think that, we have to be, our industry has to get way more vocal than we are. We have to get way more comfortable putting content and messaging out, explaining what we do, especially in this day and age, and articulating our value and what that is. I'm gonna give an example of this, Kara, because I think it's really important. When my dad passed away, we had to move my mom. She went to a 55+ community. We used an agent to buy the house. Obviously, my mom's a retired realtor, and I don't represent that area. We used an expert. I'm going to give you a really specific real-world example, and I think it's important for everybody to hear this. That agent, who of course was in my company, but she sent me an email with the disclosure package. By the way, in California, you're all welcome. That disclosure package was 126 pages for that condo, okay? She gave me the email, said, here's the disclosure package. Here's the bullet points of what you needed to know. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Here's what I did as the buyer. I said, thank you so much, Dawn, appreciate it, and I filed the email away. Here's the problem. What I didn't do was ask Dawn, how long did it take you to read that disclosure package that was 126 pages that I am not going to spend any time reading? And she responded back, it took me 6 hours. There's the problem. See, the buyer didn't know that the agent spent 6 hours reading that. They just saw the finalized work product of the 6 bullet points and just was like, oh, to me, 6 bullet points is 15 minutes worth of work, not the 6 hours it took her to go through all of that stuff. We as an industry have to get so much more transparent about what we do so that consumers, buyers and sellers go, damn, I didn't realize it would take 112 hours to buy a house, or whatever that time frame is. Or I didn't realize that when, by the way, for those of you on that are listening, in 2021, when you write 15 offers for a buyer, none of which are accepted, that all of that took time to write those offers, send them out, talk to the listing agent, figure out the terms, try to negotiate back and forth. All of those things are part of what we do. So what I always tell people right now is this. It's kind of like my 5-point process to it. Number 1, go get your buyer rep agreement. For those of you that are in a state that's required, congratulations. There's only 14 of you. For the rest of the country, go call your state association or your local and ask for the buyer rep agreement. Download it, read it, learn it, get a hold of Scott, role play it, whatever you got to do, but get comfortable talking about what your services are and why you expect them to be exclusive to you in return for all the work you're going to do. Number 2, a buyer presentation. I'm going to go back to the same products. All of the CMA products, they have a buyer presentation product too. Get really comfortable about talking about these things with them. I'll tell you the third thing, and this is important. I'm on my soapbox, but you got to hear it. People do not understand how we are compensated. I've done this. I've sat down with buyers and sellers. They see whatever the amount is that you are being paid, and they actually think that's what you get paid. They don't know you're an independent contractor and that you have to pay your own income taxes. They don't realize that you might have a split with your brokerage, or you have operational expenses, or you got to pay for your health insurance. Like, you need to get really clear and articulate about how the industry operates, the work that's involved, what we do, etc. And the last thing, I think this is really important. Treat a buyer consult the same as a listing consult. Just frame it like that. You are not going to go meet with a seller and not sit down and do a consultation and explain everything that's involved. I love what Scott said. Find a reason, get them to sit down, even if they bought a house before. The market's different, things are different, the neighborhood's different. All of those things to sit down and create that conversation. Have confidence with it. If you don't know what to talk about, do this. Start tracking everything you do with your last buyer, your buyer you're working with. Just like keep a note log. You will be amazed at how much work and time and energy you are spending working with a buyer. It will blow your mind. And if you think about it from that perspective, how many of you would go take a listing appointment and not have an exclusive contract? None of you would do that. Why are we not doing that with buyers too? We need to be very intentional. I think Rick's comment early on, like, you have to learn to talk about these things in detail. They will respond appropriately. They'll be like, wow, I didn't know you did all of that. I would love to work with you. Thank you for articulating that to me. And they'll sign that buyer rep agreement. And I'll get off my soapbox.
You know, James, I teach a lot of pre-licensing, and I often tell the students that if they were in a real estate transaction and it appeared to be easy, it's similar to going to a professional sporting event, and those athletes make it look easy, but they train really hard and work really hard at doing a great job. So there's stuff behind the scenes that they didn't see in all of those easy.
But that's our job to tell them that. The buyer and seller isn't wrong. If they're questioning what we're doing, that means we didn't do a good enough job of explaining it. And that's, I think, the thing our industry has to grow in. And it's not that we can't, we just need to reframe it. Just treat a buyer like a seller, explain it, sit down, articulate, get better at it, role play. Scott, by the way, I love the fact you guys are doing that. There should be more role playing. We got away from that as an industry for years. If I was running an office today, I'd be like, get your butts in the seat. If you can't convince me, you're not going to convince anybody else, you know? Right. So that's like a huge thing.
It's harder in front of their peers than it is in public.
Yeah. No one likes it.
Yeah. As we move towards the end of our hour here, and we've talked about many things that agents should do, but what are your top 3 things, each of you, that an activity that an agent should be focusing on in order to be successful in 2024? Rick, do you want to start?
Yeah, for me, it's easy. You have to be a perpetual student of this business. We use the phrase know the numbers, but you need to know what's happening in the marketplace and be able to translate that to actual, translate it from fact to wisdom for the decision makers, your clients. So perpetual student stance in this business is necessary. I think the second thing you have to be very, very careful is to have a very disciplined approach to how you run your business. James said, kind of make a decision. Are you in or are you out? If you're in, what is the track that you're going to run on every day? And we can talk about that, like Von Clausewitz had the thing about what's your weapons fire rate. So how often are you getting up, showing up, and making sure that people know who you are? So be a perpetual student. Know what your the track that you're running on to drive your business forward, and then and in particular, know what your marketing weapons fire rate is, so people have a chance to find you in the cluttered, crowded, noisy environments in which people live today with social media, text messaging, and all the different ways people interrupt. So be a student, have a disciplined track to run on, and then today, if this is kind of the summary checkout question, Kara. There's a quick. Will I have time to do that, or shall I just move on? Well, back in the early part of the, about 100 years ago, during the Depression, as the Depression was starting, there was a guy named Adolph Levitt who started the Mayflower Donut Company. And one of the things that is hallmark is that he started in the worst part of the Depression, the Great Depression, but over time he opened up 18 stores, became the largest national retail donut chain. And in the course of becoming that prominent company all the way through 1970, they diversified, they moved with changes, new dietary issues, invented donut machines, box mixes. He did everything he was supposed to do, and he accredited his success to something. And I think it's super important today, with all the noise that's going on, with all of the legal issues the industry is facing, with marketplaces up, shortage of inventory, interest rates moving as they have. He had this mantra, or what he called the Optimist Creed, that said, as you ramble through life, brother, whatever be your goal, keep your eye upon the donut and not upon the hole. And it's super important for us to understand that the noise will take you out of your discipline. But if you educate and have the student stance through your career, and you stay focused on what is best interest for your clients and how you're running your business, you're going to succeed in any market, So keep your eye upon the donut, not the hole.
I like that one. I'm going to use that, and I will attribute it to the correct gentleman. Scott, how about you? Top 3 things, activities that agents should be doing.
Number 1, pick up your phone.
Answer the phone for people?
Call people and answer your phone. Those are 2 things that I think agents don't do enough of. Oh, I'll just send an email. Oh, I texted them. Did you talk to somebody, right? This is a contact sport. You have to get in front of people. You have to speak to people. So number 1 thing I think agents need to do is get on the phone, pick up the phone, make phone calls, get a certain number. As Rick hit it a second ago, know your discipline. So you're gonna make 5 phone calls a day, you're gonna make 10 phone calls a day, and make those calls. Again, getting out and getting in front of people, hosting client events. Last weekend and this weekend, we were doing 2 breakfast with Santa events. We had Santa come in on a fire truck last week. This week, he's coming in on a John Deere spreader. So people love to come to this event. I make the pancakes. They get pictures with Santa. They have a coloring contest. We have a balloon. People love this event, and they talk about it all year. So you have different client events, a shred event. We do a golf tournament. We do a casino night. Anything that gets you in front of people, you have to do, because you can't hide in your basement today and be a successful realtor. You need to deepen the relationship with the people that you have, go through the 4: family, occupation, recreation, dreams. This is a great time of year to call people. What are you doing for the holidays? What are you doing for New Year's? My daughter goes to Tennessee. I'm going to the Citrus Bowl. So, I've got things to tell people there. So making the contacts, doing the client events, and James and I are big on this, doing videos. I do 3 videos a week to my agents. I do a market update out on Facebook and LinkedIn. It's called Steering You in the Right Direction in Real Estate. And I'm driving my cars. I'm going from one appointment to the next and talk about, the market update and how it can help you if you're a buyer, or how it can help you if you're a seller. Talk about interest rates, things along those lines. So again, as James said, I'm showing that I am an expert in the business before I even go out and meet with them. And they say, oh yeah, I've seen your videos. One agent called and said, when are you doing your market update? I've got a listing presentation tomorrow and I want to know what the numbers are. So again, being a provider of valuable information to people through videos is a way for people to get to know you before they get to know you. So those would be my three pieces of advice.
I'm coming for the pancakes. I want an invite to that one.
Chocolate chip pancakes too.
Ooh, even better. All right, James, what are your top 3 things?
I'm only going to give one because my colleagues have a lot of good ones, but this would be my, and we have to wrap up anyway, but this would be my take. I would sit down, if you're an agent today, you look at your production and go, here's what I did, in 2023. Come up with a number on what you want to do in 2024. pick a number, whatever it is. This is my production. I want you to go sit down with your broker this afternoon, tomorrow, Friday, I don't care what day it is. Sit down with the broker and go, this is my goal. I want to get here. I want you to set up a calendar schedule to hold me accountable to doing the work necessary to get there. I want to work with you on it. I want you to tell me where I need to be at what time. I want you to tell me what appointments or what cold calls or what, whatever it is, help me achieve that. Help hold me accountable to it and stick with it. Put the calendar appointments in place, work with your broker. Don't go to meetings and not listen. Don't not ask for help. Sit down with your broker and ask for a plan for 6 months. Have him or her put that in place and stick with it. And in 6 months from now, you'll either be out of the business because you didn't do it, or you will have accomplished it because somebody held you accountable, you did the work, and then you'll be on this panel sharing feedback on how to do it in the future. So I'll leave it with that.
We've got one more bit of advice from you guys. So I'm gonna say keep it to 60 seconds so we can keep on our time frame. What is the best advice you have for brokerage to help make their agents successful? It's a competitive business too, the brokerage business. How about you, Scott?
Well, one of the things that I put down, there's obviously several different things, but hire the right people. And if they're not the right people, fire the right people. We have the right people in place on our team from a leadership perspective to help agents grow their business. We have a director of sales and productivity. We have a director of operations. We have a lady who works on our event planning. Everybody works well as a cohesive team. And we want to make sure that we have those people in place and that they're doing the things that they need to do to help the agents become successful. So that would be my recommendation, is hire the right agents as well as the right staff. You want to have agents that have the same professionalism as you, have the same productivity goals as each other so that they can push each other. We twice a year go through our roster and we say, okay, they've only sold 3 or 4 houses this year, and we want our average agent to sell a minimum of 10 houses. We have a conversation with them. Is now the time for you to consider going to the referral company or perhaps to another brokerage? So again, we get rid of agents that aren't participating in the trainings, aren't coming to our events, and aren't doing the productivity that the other agents expect of the agents within the company. So hire and fire properly.
How about you, Rick? What's your 60-second advice for a real estate broker?
Have the right mission and stay focused on it. Ours is to change and improve the financial trajectory of our agents and brokers' careers and lives, and all the decision making we are involved in day in and day out, including which companies to affiliate with, how we decide on new programs, products, and services to our agents. It all runs through the filter of how does it help support the improvement of our agents' careers and lives and our brokers' careers and lives. And if you know your mission, you stay focused on your mission, and have it be a filter for decision making, you're going to do really well.
Excellent. And how about you, James?
Over communicate. We're in a time where there is a lack of leadership in our industry in many areas, in many ways. I'm of the belief you need to over communicate to your people as much as possible. Be the leader, talk about difficult issues, talk about difficult conversations, have those conversations with people. Over communicate. If you're doing a certain amount of communication now, double it. You're going to need to, especially in 2024. I think the people that are leading from the top will see their companies grow in this new future. So,
James,
Well,
number
I'd like to thank you all.
be a leader and communicate. That was my number 2.
yeah, we're on the same page, my
On
friend.
the same wavelength here, buddy.
Yeah.
Great minds think alike. Rick,
Yes,
is
sir.
there something that you'd like to say before we sign off here?
How about thank you? Scott, James, thanks for being part of the panel. Kara, thanks for facilitating, and to RISMedia and John Featherston and the team, thanks for doing all you can to help education be part of your mission at RISMedia. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Rick. Appreciate it.
This
Thank
was
you.
amazing, guys. I really enjoyed it. I learned some things from you, great perspectives. I know that our audience did too, and I hope to see you again soon for pancakes.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Now go sell something.
Yeah.